Now I come to my presentation. I'll be talking about woods in India, historical utilization, and future sustainability. Before coming to the exact topic, I'd like to tell you something about my organization, from where I come from. In India, Forest Research Institute, Dehradun, is the premier institute that has been carrying out research in wood science since past 100 years. And my division particularly, the wood science division, basically is rendering the yeoman service to the entire nation through inputs on identification, properties, uses, seasoning, preservation of timbers. And our regular clients include defense people, the Central Bureau of Investigation or police cases, cases coming from Vigilance Department. We also do a lot of work for national test houses and forensic labs. Our regular client is railways, which are using a lot of woods, the housing corporations, Sports Authority of India, Archaeological Survey of India, Paleobotany Institute, the Botanical Institutes, timber-based industries, Bureau of Indian Standards. All the Indian standards that you'll see on timber are being formulated by us. Then handicraft industry, forest department, and electricity board. Now, because we are associated with identification of wood for Archaeological Survey of India, it is because of my association with this organization, we are able to draw some historical utilization of wood, some chronology of the historical utilization of wood in India. As you all know that when we talk of ancient civilizations of the world, there are three civilizations which are supposed to be the oldest. This is the Egyptian civilization, the Mesopotamia, and then Indus Valley civilization. And this dates back between 3,500 to 1000 BCE. So I'll be talking about something on Indus Valley civilization also. Now, giving you an historical account, the ancient civilization of erstwhile India can be traced back to some 5,000 years. The written information on wood is about 3,500 years old, and the most of the inscription of the ancient wood information comes from Vedas. This is the one, Vedas, Upanishad, and Purans. And we have two religious texts, Ramayana and Mahabharata, which also talks about wood. Then explorations in India started in 1784, followed by Archaeological Survey of India in 1861. Coming to the historical account that is given in our ancient text, thus Vedas, we have written record of domestic and religious life of people. It talks about existence of a class of artisans, which in Sanskrit is called Vadaki. There is also an instructions on choice and handling of woods for boat and shipbuilding particularly. This book also talks about strong and durable timbers for making thrones of kings. It mentions about the seasoning properties of different timbers, and it also gives choices for making sculptures of deities, So a special mention is there of this wood Calotropis gigantea and Diospyros albinum. This Diospyros albinum is a black color wood, almost black, and there is one god called Krishna in India, which is supposed to be a dark colored god. So this wood has been recommended for making the sculptures of Krishna. Now, in my lab, a lot of work was done for Archaeological Survey of India, and these are the various places where excavations were done and woods were brought to us and were identified by my lab. So I'll be talking about some of these sites and the wood being found in these areas. Coming to the first site, that's the Neolithic site, which dates back between 2375 to 1535 BC. There's a place in Kashmir called Burjahom, and from there, the burnt material of one ceiling were given to us for identification, and we found this Parrhesia jacumontiana, and prunus, juniper, and some monocots. Interestingly, recently I went to this place and I found that Parrhesia twigs were still used for wicker work. Prunus flakes were still used for plastering, mud plastering of the walls. And these baskets you can see, they are still made up of Parrhesia. So this basically reflects upon the immortal traditions that we have in our country. Coming to another site that dates back between 2500 to 1750 BC. This was Bronze Age site, and this is basically the Indus Valley civilization. That is one of the oldest civilization of the world. And knowledge about this particular civilization comes from the study excavation from the excavations done from these cities, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, which are now in Pakistan, and then Lothal, Rangpur, all these places which are in India. Now, giving you just one example from Harappa, that is Indus Valley Civilization city, we found there was one coffin which was found in this Harappa area, and the wood remains of this coffin were given to us for identification, and we found that this coffin was made up of two woods, Cedrus deodara and Dalbergia latifolia. So Devdar and rosewood. So this basically reflects that Harappans were very well acquainted with the use of durable and scented woods for making coffins. They know about the wood availability, and there were also trade connections with the northern and the southern regions, because this Harappa is basically just at the border of India and Pakistan. So both the woods, this Devdar comes from high Himalayan ranges, and rosewood comes from central India. So this suggests that there were trade links between these three places. Then another find from this particular place was of Gigifus. Now this is a very important find because this particular wood was being used for making mortar for pounding grains. And today scientifically it has been proved that this wood is having a lot of shock absorbing property. So this was the right wood being used for the right purpose. Then other finds from this area were Pinus roxburghi and Cedrus deodara, which are well-known construction timber of today. So this basically reflects upon the knowledge of wood properties during this particular time. Coming to another very interesting site, that is Lothal, which is on the western side of India. This is the first tight dock of the world constructed for berthing and servicing of ships. So the boat technology in India, boat building technology in India dates back to 3rd millennium BC. And the woods that were found were Acacia chundra, Albizia species, Adina cordifolia, Tectuna grandis, Soimida, and one lauraceae wood. This Acacia chundra is a very, very interesting find in this area because this is supposed to be the substitute of Lignum vitae of South America. And it has the self-lubricating property. So this is the best marine wood from India. Then coming to other sites, one Chalcolithic site, which is Copper Age, dating between 1700 BC to 800 BC. And here we found the charcoal remains of Dalbergia sisu and Holorhina antidicentrica. Both the woods have high calorific value, and Holorhina antidicentrica is a highly medicinal plant. Then another site, from here we found Acacia species and Chloroxylon sweetenia, which are again having a lot of calorific value. So both these studies basically reflects upon the knowledge of calorific value of woods prevailing in those times. Then coming to some another site, that's Karla Caves in Maharashtra. That's another western area of India. Here, some wood samples from the ceiling were brought to us, and it was found to be of Tectona grandis. Then the durability test was also carried out, and it was found that 40% of the wood was crystalline and 60% of the wood had changed into amorphous form. So it shows that basically, although it was 2,200 years old, still 40% of the wood was crystalline. So this reflects upon the durability of teak over the time. Then another find from another site was of Shoria robusta, that's sal, which is one of the very strong timber of India. And it's a very, very popular timber for construction purposes even today. So this basically reflects upon the knowledge of wood durability prevailing earlier. Then this is another site, Arakmadu, which is on the southern tip of India. And here we found woods of Diospyros, Mimosaups, and Heritiera. The Diospyros were used for ternary and carving work in this area. Mimosaups and Heritiera are very strong and durable timbers which were used for boat building, construction, and agricultural implements. And today also scientifically they have been proved to be the woods which are good for these purposes only. Then coming to the early historic site, here we found 4 woods. Shoria is sal, then terminalia, mango, and cinnamomum. There was one Ashwamegha site. Basically, this is a site where one yagna was carried out, and this was basically done to by the kings to spread their supremacy in that area. So they used to run a horse, and wherever the horse used to go, they used to say that this is their area. And if somebody captures the horse, then they had to fight with the king to establish his supremacy. So this site basically, and then in the last, that horse was to be sacrificed. So in that particular site where the horse was to be sacrificed, the woods which were found were Shoria, Terminalia, Mangifera, and Cinnamomum. This Shoria was basically being used to make a pillar to tie the horse. So knowledge of strength was there. Terminalia was used to boil the blood. So the calorific value of Terminalia is very high, so the right wood being used. Then mango was used for yagna purpose, and cinnamomum is the camphor. So those 2 things were used for yagna purpose. So if you see the basically the things that are used for yagna today, it is exactly the same. We still use mango twigs for yagna purpose, and camphor is still used in this process. So this basically reflects upon the timeless and immutable Indian customs that prevail. Then, of course, after this, during this first 3rd to 5th century, we have many temples which are still existing today, and they're in very good shape still. And you get a very good differentiation between the woods which are being used for making temples in the northern region and the woods which are being used in the temples at the southern region. So in the north, mostly it is the Sidras Devdara which is being used for making wooden temples. So here it was all wooden temples which are made up of Sidras Devdara. Again, this is another temple in a very far off place, but in northern India, again using Sidras Devdara for building it. On the other hand, if you see the southern India temples, the woods which are being used in South India are quite different. There, the uses of Tectona grandis for beams. The interior carvings were of Delbergia latifolia, that's rosewood. The ceilings were of Swietenia mahogany, and Artocarpus heterophilus was used for columns. And columns basically means that they were in contact with the soil all the time. Then there were some sculptures which were recently given to us, which were confiscated by the custom people, and they were given to us for identification. And we found that these sculptures, 3 sculptures that were given to us, were made up of Madhuka species. Now, if you see the sculpture, these sculptures usually you'll find outside the temple, just at the gate of the temple, because this elephant you'll always find outside the temple. This was rightly being made out of this wood, Madhuka, because Madhuka is supposed to be a very, very strong and durable timber, even in contact with soil and water. So the right wood being used for the right purpose. Now this is one very interesting find that dates back between 14th to 16th century, and there was one sculpture that we found was made up of ficus species. Now this ficus is not at all a durable species, and you can see how much damage was there in this particular sculpture. So it's a very non-durable timber, but why it was being used for making sculpture is not known to us. Then of course Indian music has accumulated heritage of centuries, and origin can be traced back to Vedic days, that's 2500 BC. You can see all these instruments which are being used by Indians, and the wood which are being used for making these instruments are teak, Delbergia sisu, Tuna ciliata, Delbergia latifolia is rosewood, Artocarpus heterophyllus, Juglans regia, Diospyros albinum, black ebony, Swietenia, and bamboo. Now coming to the 19th century, that's the era of modern wood science. This started with the establishment of my institute, Xylarium, that's Forest Research Institute Xylarium, which was established in 1878. And we have written records in the form of timber trees. And then there's a very, very important publication, that's a Manual of Indian Trees by Campbell. Now this particular book, Manual of Indian Trees by Campbell, it deals with physical and gross features, properties and uses of 1450 woods. And interestingly, all the knowledge of the uses of all these 1450 woods come from the knowledge of the locals, which is very interesting. So this shows that excellent scientific wisdom on wood uses existed in India before these publications were made. Then, of course, like Japanese, even Indians are obsessed with wood. This is my institute's convocation hall, and you can see it's totally made up of wood. We have roofs being made up of Pinus roxburghi, the floor made up of Pterocarpus macrocarpus, and some of the exhibits that you can see in my organization. Now coming to the Indian woods, the current status and future sustainability. Although we have such a rich wood culture, but still we face a lot of problem when we talk of future sustainability of wood. Now this is in a nutshell the scenario. We have some 3.28 million kilometer square area, geographical area, out of which 21% is our forest cover, which is quite less. We have 60% as reserve forest that is owned by our government. We have around 32.37 protected forest. Now this protected forests are very important because they are in a very good shape right now. These are government owned, and we have them in the form of national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, conservation reserves, and community reserves. And of course, in case of national parks and conservation reserves, there is no activity allowed in the core zone. We have buffer zone and a core zone, and in core zone, no activity, no human interference is allowed. No livestock, no nothing. So they are in a very good shape. We have some private forest in which the government doesn't have any hold. That's 6.86. We have some unclassed forest which are again owned by government, but they have not been categorized under reserve or protected. That accounts to be just 1%. Then the most important thing is that we have a lot of wastelands in India. And this is an alarming figure, 14.75%, and most of our policies basically are looking for these wastelands only. So I'll be talking about them in detail. And right now we have some 32.57 million hectare plantations. Coming to the wood biodiversity, we have some 1600 tree species in India, of which 276 are commercial timber species, 99 are rare and threatened trees, 4 are under CITES. Now, although the Sterocarpus santallinus is red cinder, Texas wallichiana, Equilaria melicansis, that's agar wood, and Araucaria araucana. About 85 are medicinally exploited. And then you all know that India is a mega diverse country with 16 different forest types and having tremendous wood diversity. We have almost all colors of wood, varying from light buff to jet black. We have lightest to heaviest wood with us. We have the most sweet smelling wood, that's sandalwood, and also the most foul smelling wood, that's Celtis cinnamomea. We have beautifully streaked and variegated woods. And then I would like to talk about something on naturally durable woods, because Indians and Tanzanians face a lot of problems of termites. So I have specifically brought some data on the naturally durable woods. And here's some studies which were carried out by my institute colleagues, and they have come out with this naturally durable woods against dry wood and subterranean termites. And although we have some very high diversity of termites, we have some 260 species of termites in India, but these woods have been found that the outer heartwood area of these woods were found to be quite durable against dry wood and subterranean termites. So I've just listed them down. The Tictuna grandis, Terminalia alata, Acacia catachu, Artocarpus hirsutus, Carya arborea, Cassia fistula, Pterocarpus santallinus, Citrus deodara, Chlorocynlon, Sweetenia, Delbergia latifolia, Cupressus staurulosa, Lophopetalum whiteanum, Mathuca longifolia, Mesva feria, one of the heaviest wood, Xylea xylocarpa, and Pinus wallichiana. Then, besides these woods, bamboos are being used in India a lot, and the Vedic craftsmen, that's the Vedas, also talk about bamboo. It's referred as cradle to the coffin timber. We have 140 species, 19 genera, and it covers about 13% of our forest area. And a lot of work is being carried out on bamboo, because it's a very fast growing species, and a lot of these mat boards, corrugated sheets, doors, windows are being made out of bamboo. So a lot of research is going into bamboo. Now coming to the present scenario of Indian woods. Like Tanzanians, we also have the demand of wood is much more than the supply, and I've got very alarming figures in this case. Our total demand is approximately 64 million cubic meter, of which our forest supply is around 3.175 million cubic meter. The plantation area is able to provide us with 42.77 million cubic meter, and 5.9 million cubic meter is the imported wood. I'm talking of logs and roundwood only. So there's a gap of about 12%, so a lot of illegal activities are going on. Okay. Then the concerns or the sustainability challenges that we face. There's a lot of biotic and developmental pressure that we face, that we are facing, and again, very, very alarming figures. 2.47 of the world geographical area, and we have 1.8 of world's forest area, 8% of world biodiversity. Despite this fact, we are able to support 16% of world's human population and 18% of world's livestock. So you can imagine how much pressure is there on our forest. And then ours is a developing country, so much of the forest area is being diverted to hydroelectric projects, roads, etc. We have problem of natural regeneration and per capita yield. The per capita forest area is just 0.8 hectares against global average of 0.64. Per capita yield is again very low. It's 0.70 cubic meter per hectare per year against the global average of 2.1. Then our mean annual increment of plantation timber is again very low. But this is because we have very slow growing species of timber. But when it comes to fast growing species, again our Indian average is much below the global average, and only in very, very few cases we are able to meet the global average. Then lot of illicit felling and trade. I have some very alarming figures, but I'll go quickly. The timber quality that is being imported in India is very, very bad because everything is pumped into India because the demand is so high that we are utilizing everything. Then lot of pests are being traded along with these imported timbers, which are again causing lot of problems. And of course, we have some problem of awareness also because there's inappropriate substitution of wood with high energy materials like aluminium, steel, or eco-damaging like plastics. Now, coming to the last slide, just 2 slides more. How we are mitigating these challenges, what are we exactly doing about it? We have plantation forest, which is 17 million hectares, and we have some 44% of teak plantations of the world. When it comes to forest certification, we are, although in infancy, but starting has already been done. Few areas have already been FSC certified, and we have some 300 chain of custody certificate holders right now. Then we have a lot of for scientific utilization, of course, we have all Indian standards being formulated, and we list species which are best for the purpose, and accordingly, it's mandatory for all government departments to use those woods only which are listed in Indian standards. So we have Indian standards for almost all users, and then our government and industrial policies are there, which are basically meant to enhance the imports. So I'm not going into detail. We have many policies. Then education and awareness. Here I'll just like to mention one thing, that we have although we have research institutes and educational institutes working in this direction, but we have non-government organizations and joint forest management committees, which are huge number, and they are basically doing a very good job in India. Then coming to my last slide, I'm talking about this timber sustainability policies that are being framed by Government of India. Although scientific management of forest in India dates back to 1864, we have complete ban on felling of trees from natural forest since 1996. And the prime objective of our national forest policy is to raise the forest area from 21% to 33%. We have these National Afforestation and Eco-Development Board to establish nurseries and raise plantations, and then we have joint forest management schemes launched. And this is important. Environmental Ministry clearances are mandatory for converting forest land to other land use. And one has to, allocate a lot of funds if the forest has to be changed to some other so that it can be regenerated. Then we have National Working Group working on forest certification. And then lastly, there are 8 missions that have been launched by Government of India, and the most important one is this Green India mission. And this targets some plantations of some 20 million hectares by 2020. So basically, the sustainability of timber would depend upon the implementation and success of these programs. And I hope that we are going to really succeed in that. So thank you very much for your patience.
Thank you very much.